Welcome back. Today I'm actually going to go ahead and go over weak ORs in a little bit more of an advanced state. What I'm going to be looking into at this point are priorities and groupings. I feel like doing that can actually help out. It will help you get what you need across your screen in a more concise manner. One other thing I'd like to do is point out that I'm going to change a trigger a bit to display as one thing but track another. So let's begin. First, open up your weak ORs. Make sure nothing else is showing. And what we're going to do is we're going to create a series of new things. The first thing we're going to create are our triggers, basically the items that we need to see. So I'm going to speed through this because this here is something we covered in our previous video, and I'll be right back as soon as I'm done. And we're back. Now, this here is what I've created. We have Arcane Charges Tracker, Clear Casting, Rules of Three, and Touch of the Magi. What I'm going to be doing is putting majority of these, except for the tracker, into a group. There are two types of groups, Standard and Dynamic. Standard means wherever they're put within that group is where they visually appear. Think of it like a separate anchor on screen. Whereas a dynamic group will move the icons or textures based on what's transpiring. In this case, we're going to go ahead and use a dynamic group because I want to prioritize the greatest item on one side of the screen, preferably on the left. So we're going to create a new. We're going to choose dynamic group. We're going to give it a name. I'm going to call it priorities. Now that we've created priorities, we're going to move things into it. Now, first and foremost, bringing back our previous video, you're going to notice that there's a little eye that is kind of squinty. If I click that once, it'll bring everything up. Click it again, it hides everything. After you add a new element, it'll typically go squinty and only show you whatever you're selected on. In this case, we wanted to show everything. This is a habit I've gotten into. We're going to select the first item, Arcane Charges. We're going to hold down the Control key and click Clear Casting, Rule of Threes, Touch of the Magi. Then we're going to hit this group button, which is a little arrow, and we're going to click the Priorities group. Now we've added them all to the Priorities group. We can expand this and see that they're in this order. If I click the group, you'll see the little lock icon. So they're anchored to the top part of this group and they move downwards. In this particular case, I'm going to quickly organize where I want these and then I'll show you some settings. So let's begin. Okay, now that I've moved them where I want them, the first things first is I want to change this. I want them to show up on the left as the most prioritized item and push to the right things that aren't as priority. Now, first and foremost, we have to find out what's the biggest priority. Well, we have a thing called Touch of the Magi. In this case, it means whatever damage I put in is going to get amplified into a little bomb afterwards, so I feel like that's my strongest attack. Next, I would say Rule of Threes. Then we're going to have Clear Casting, followed by Arcane Charges. Now, this Arcane Charges is not going to be just a tracker like the other one. This is actually going to alert me when I have 4 charges, so that way I can clear my stacks if I don't have any of the other 3 above, and I'm not in a burn phase. Now, this is mage related, But you can use the same logic for other things, other classes, other priority lists. So we're going to start bottom up, and then we'll adjust things as we go. So starting with arcane charges, I'm going to go to display, and I'm going to scroll up, and I'm going to choose an icon, because by default, if I go to trigger, you'll see it actually doesn't have anything named, so it doesn't know what to pull. It's just saying arcane charges is what I'm tracking. Now, quickly while I'm here, I'm going to say if the power, which is the charge, equals 4, then this icon is going to show up. Because I don't want it to show up if I don't have 4 stacks. Going back to display, we're going to choose an icon, arcane charge. I am partial to this one. So we'll hit OK. So now I got an icon there. But then I want to think. I'm not actually going to be clicking an arcane charge icon. There's no icon for it. But I'm going to be clicking my arcane barrage. That's what I want to cast. So in this particular case, I want an icon that's going to be more beneficial to me. So we're going to change this. Arcane barrage. Bingo. So now it looks like one button, but it's really something else. Now, we're going to turn off the cooldown because I don't care about a cooldown on this. I do want it to glow. I'm not a fan of this action button glow, so I'm going to change this, and I'm going to do pixel glow. And I want it to kind of glow in a red, so that way it alerts me. So we're going to do red. So now it's going to highlight in red to let me know that it is time to cast that. But it's not this mandated, I have to stop what I'm doing. I don't need to grab that much attention. I don't need to show stacks on here either, because if I see it, I know I have 4 stacks. It will not show up otherwise. So that's that as far as that is concerned. Moving into clear casting, everything is basically as is. It's only going to show up if I have the clear casting buff, and it's my own. So everything is good to go there. I don't need to, but I will add a little glow effect. And I think it kind of goes with the kind of aspect of being a mage, maybe having a little bit of a purpley blue glow around it to indicate clear casting. I think that's pretty cool. Now moving on to rule of threes, we're going to go ahead and do the same thing. The condition here for the trigger is having rule of threes. But this time, because this is a major ability, I want to cast my arcane missiles when I'm using it, or my arcane explosion. And because it could be either one, I don't want to have one or the other icon. I want to have something that's more generic, so having the rule of threes icon works better, unlike the arcane charges turning into barrage. So in this case, I'm going to keep the action button glow as is, but I'm going to change the color, give it a little bit of a bluish tint. I think that works really good. And I'm going to turn off the text. And speaking of, I'm going to go to clear casting and turn off the text as well, because I don't need to know stacks. I don't need to know progress. It is going to be a scenario of just hit it and go. Now, Touch of the Magi. If I go to trigger, this is not a buff for myself. This is a buff for my target. So, if my target has the debuff, Touch of the Magi, and only cast from me, not from any other mage, then it's going to load this trigger and show this icon. Now, if that's the case, I do want to keep a cooldown on there. I want to know how long I have left. And we're going to inverse this because I want it to kind of fill up like that. And I'll give it a little edge so I know exactly where it's at. We're going to give it a glow effect. And we're going to change the glow color. I want it to be kind of like a orange, something that indicates I should be paying attention and really going whole hog on this actual boss at that point. Now, text, we have stacks. This is not a stacking item, but it does have a timer. So we're going to put progress. And right there, it has the progress timer in the bottom left. I want this to be in the center. So again, just like in our previous video, we're going to go ahead and we're going to set up our actual timer. And we're going to change it to be an integer. And we're going to make it a little bigger. There we go. So now I know exactly how long I have to really dump all my attacks into this actual boss. Now, as I'd mentioned in the previous video as well, I personally don't like having these little kind of rounded corner edges that look like action buttons. So again, I'm going to click the first one, hold Shift, and click the last one to select all of them. Go to Display, scroll down to Zoom, and make it 30%. So now they're all squares. Perfect. This looks beautiful. Now, in the beginning of this video I mentioned I want to have this show on the left the highest priority. So we're going to click the priorities group, and we're going to go to the group tab, which is a new tab. Here you can actually modify how it basically grows and acts. I can have it say it wants to grow counterclockwise, which would look like that, and you could change the radius to bring it in, or you can bring it out. I'm not going to do that though. I haven't found a time or a place for that to be useful, but I want it to grow to the right. So I think this looks pretty good. Put it just like that. So now my highest priority is on the left, my lowest is on the right. I think that looks perfectly fine. So now I'm just going to set up my arcane tracker so I know how many stacks I have before I see the alert. Sometimes this is useful, sometimes it's not. In this case, for me as an arcane mage, I think it's very useful. So while I ramble here, I'm just going to set this up. Now, again, the reason that you'd be doing something like a dynamic group is to allow the icons to move around screen. There are times, if you've ever seen videos where people have these auras that indicate what they should be casting next, that's how these things are built. So whether it's the add-on Tell Me When or weak auras, it's the same idea. So if you know all the conditions that go into making your rotation, you could theoretically make a series of triggers that play together and tell you what to do and when to do it. I would not rely on it 100%, but it is really good to help you out with a new class or to hone your skills and inefficiencies. So, just about done here. There. I think we're good to go. So we're going to test this out real fast. Watch my buffs in the upper right and the buffs that pop up here. So you could see there, basically what happened is when I saw that my target had Touch of the Magi, I had the red alert, well, orange alert, and I was able to think quickly. I also have Rule of 3, so the first thing I should be casting is my Arcane Missiles. And then throw as many Arcane Blasts into the target and use something like Presence of Mind to go ahead and do that. Had I not had that weak aura, I would have had to be looking to my upper right to find out what buffs were on me, watching the target's debuffs in the bottom left, and then watching my cooldowns in the bottom center. That's inefficient. But by knowing everything in one spot, I can determine what I need to do and when I need to do it. If I were doing a full-fledged weak aura for this mage, I would have an aura that shows my Presence of Mind stacks, if it's active, if it's not active, if it's on cooldown, something to help me out with that. Same thing for my Arcane Power. If it's not on cooldown, then I should be able to say, hey, quickly, I can hit that real quick, dump this into the actual boss during my Touch of the Magi, and really go full ham on it. So that is basically some of the value you're going to get out of weak auras. And that's why I'm having these little tutorials. I want to have people learn how they can be better at all of this. This is a tool that's there. It's highly encouraged. I see people on PTRs struggling to get this working because it really helps out in raiding environments and just anything. If you're doing a Mythic Plus, being able to know on the fly what's going on with your character is, you can't even count the value that has. So with that being said, again, we have a dynamic group. We organized it so it shows these in the order, top to bottom, which is left to right, of what I want to show. If I change this, it reorganizes here. So put it in the order that you want it to be. I change some triggers to say, hey, power equals 4. We have Touch of the Magi, which is a trigger against a target's debuff. That's only cast from me. I have my tracker, and I set this group to go to the right. That is everything that we're going to do with groups for today. Again, thank you for watching. I appreciate the views and the time. If you know me personally, as I mentioned before, you're welcome to reach out. Otherwise, feel free to leave a comment. You be well. Bye.